जलते हैं। क्या तकल्लुफ़ करे ये कहने में, जो भी खुश हैं हम उससे जलते हैं। दिल में अब जिनका निशान भी न रहा, क्यों न चेहरों पे अब वो रंग खिले। दिल में अब जिनका निशान भी न रहा, क्यों न चेहरों पे वो अब रंग खिले। दिल में अब जिनका निशान भी न रहा, क्यों न चेहरों पे अब वो रंग खिले। अब तो खाली है रूह जज्बों से, अब तो खाली है रूह जज्बों से। अब भी क्या हम तपाक से न मिले। अब तो खाली है रूह जज्बों से, अब भी क्या हम तपाक से न मिले। क्या तकल्लुफ़ करे ये कहने में, जो भी खुश हैं हम उससे जलते हैं। वालेकुम अस्सलाम Aisha. Hopefully you're doing good. Hopefully Emma is doing good. दास्तां खत्म होने वाली है। दिल में अब जिनका निशान भी न रहा, क्यों न चेहरों पे अब वो रंग खिले। दिल में अब जिनका निशान भी न रहा, क्यों न चेहरों पे अब वो रंग खिले। अब तो खाली है रूह जज्बों से, अब तो खाली है रूह जज्बों से। अब भी क्या हम तपाक से न मिले। अब तो खाली है रूह जज्बों से, अब भी क्या हम तपाक से न मिले। वेलकम टू द स्ट्रीम। कैसे हो आप सब? So we are continuing with the book of Ravish Kumar as I had promised earlier. We are going to finish it. I think it will take us 2 more days, and inshallah, after we finish this, we will take up another task. I don't know what I'm going to do after that, but we are going to do something. Like we will continue. Rumi will be reading any other novel, or for that sake stories. Let us see. Time will tell. So yesterday we had finished the first part of the book, I guess, and we also read some poems of Rumi. Today also we are going to do the same. We're going to finish another chapter of it, and we will continue with the poetry, the impeccable poetry of Rumi. Yep. So I have just shared the link and I've pasted it on Twitter. Let us see who comes and who doesn't come. Then we will continue. Okay. Walaikum assalam, Sinner Man. Welcome to the stream. So I have just posted the link on Twitter. Let us wait for other guys to come and arrive. Then we will start with the other topic. Hi, Nan. Walaikum assalam. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to the stream. The next topic is the Robo Public and the building of a new democracy. तो ये दूसरा चैप्टर है इसका. So once we finish this book, accordingly we will continue with other book or novel or poetry or Rumi. देखते हैं क्या करते हैं इसके बाद. But we will do some creative work here. ये 2 घंटा 1.5 घंटा आपकी लाइफ का ज़ाया नहीं जाएगा. So I am just scrolling down. मैं वहाँ जा रहा हूँ जहाँ हमने छोड़ दिया था कल वो पोएम. तब तक हम वो पढ़ लें. We'll read the poem of Rumi, and then जब तक सब आ जाते हैं फिर हम स्टार्ट करेंगे with the book. ये माउस वाला हमने पढ़ लिया था शायद. See, the problem is ये सी ऑन काउ ये वाला हमने पढ़ा था. टू फ्रेंड्स ये भी हमने पढ़ी थी. मुझे याद ही नहीं रहता है हमने कहाँ पे छोड़ दिया था. Hello Maria, how are you? Hopefully you're doing good. आइनन if you do remember हमने कहाँ पे छोड़ दिया था. I don't remember. शायद इमरुल काइस ये हमें पढ़ना है शायद. हाँ ये ओके थोड़ा सा मैं पढ़ लूँ देखता हूँ इसमें कुछ. यप यही पढ़ना है. ऑल रिवर्स एट वंस. तब तक हम ये वाला पढ़ते हैं जब तक हमारे लिसनर्स आएंगे. एंड वी विल स्टार्ट विद द बुक. ओके. All rivers at once. Don't unstring the bow. I am your four-feathered arrow that has not been used yet. I am a strong knife blade word, not some if or maybe dissolving in air. I am sunlight slicing the dark. Who made this night? A forge deep in the earth mud. The body, endurance. What is love? Gratitude. What is hidden in our chests? Laughter. What else? Compassion. Let the cloud be a hat pulled down firmly on my head, or draw strings pulled and tied around my chest. Someone asks, how does love have hands and feet? Love is the sprouting bed for hands and feet. Your father and mother were playing love games. They came together and you appeared. Don't ask what love can make or do. Look at the colors of the world, the river water moving in all rivers at once, the truth that lives in Shamas's face. Then there is another one, the blocked road. I wish I knew what you wanted. You block the road and won't give me the rest. You pull my lead rope one way, then the other. You act cold, my darling. Do you hear what I say? Will this night of talking ever end? Why am I still embarrassed and timid about you? You are thousands, you are one. Quiet, but most articulate. Your name is spring, your name is wine. Your name is the nausea that comes from the wine. You are my doubting, and the light points in my eye. You are every image, and yet I am homesick for you. Can I get there, where the deer pounces on the lion? Where the one I am after's after me? This drum and these words keep pounding. Let them both smash through their coverings into silence. And there is another one, a babbling child. If my words are not saying what you would say, slap my face. Discipline me as a loving mother does a babbling child caught up in nonsense. A thirsty man runs into the sea, and sea holds a sword to his throat. A lily looks at a bank of roses and wilts and says nothing. I am a tambourine. Don't put me aside till the fast dancing starts. Play me some all along. Help me with these little sounds. Joseph is most beautiful when he is completely naked, but his shirt gives you an idea, as the body lets you glimpse the glitter on the water of the soul. Even if the corpse washer binds my jaw shut, you will still hear the song coming out of my dead silence. This is so beautiful. This is so beautiful. Even if the corpse washer binds my jaw shut, you will still hear the song You will still hear this song coming out of my dead silence. Who sees inside from outside? Who finds hundreds of mysteries, even where minds are deranged? See through his eyes what he sees. Who then is looking out from his eyes? Okay. Walaikum assalam, Nancy David. I guess we have spent at least 10 minutes waiting for the guys to arrive. तो जितनों को आना था आ गए हैं. We will start with the book itself क्योंकि फिर टाइम नहीं रहता है ठीक है ना. We'll start with the book ठीक है. पहले मुझे बता दीजिए इफ़ यू आर नॉट इंटरेस्टेड इन द बुक देन टेल मी. अभी बता दीजिए जल्दी. फिर मैं ये पढ़ूंगा नहीं, कुछ और पढ़ते हैं. देन लेट अस स्टार्ट विद अगर आपको पसंद है पोलो कोलो हॉकी एल्केमिस्ट देन लेट मी स्टार्ट विद दैट. अदरवाइज इसको ख़त्म करके हम वो स्टार्ट कर सकते हैं अगर आप जैसे आपकी मर्जी. अभी यहाँ पे 4 लिसनर्स है एटलीस्ट. प्लीज टेल मी क्विकली. Okay, alchemist. Bismil is saying alchemist. So Cinnamon is saying Ravish Kumar. It's 1-1. यहाँ पे 4 ही बंदे हैं. Okay, we'll do one thing. Ravish. Okay, we will do one thing. ठीक है. To make this interesting, let us read this book for 30 minutes and Alchemist for 30 minutes. ठीक है. If this is the right option तो बता दीजिए जल्दी जल्दी. 30 minutes इसके और 30 minutes Alchemist के. ओके चलिए फिर ये स्टार्ट करते थे. सो द रोबो पब्लिक एंड द बिल्डिंग ऑफ अ न्यू डेमोक्रेसी. देखिए 2017 में क्या क्या प्रिडिक्ट किया था रवीश कुमार ने. वोटिंग इन द टू फेज गुजरात इलेक्शंस ऑफ 2017 had just begun. Reports from the ground suggested that the BJP, after more than 20 years in power, was losing the support of large sections of the Gujarati public, and that this could benefit the opposition Congress. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had been campaigning extensively across his home state, and now he arrived in Palanpur to address a large crowd. Somewhere in the middle of his speech, which was widely quoted in the media, he said, there was a meeting of the High Commissioner of Pakistan, the former Minister of Pakistan, former Foreign Minister of Pakistan, the former Vice President of India, and the former Prime Minister of India, Manmohan Singh, at Mani Shankar Iyer's house. The next day, Mani Shankar Iyer said, Modi is niche. My brothers and my sisters, this is a grave matter. Pakistan is a sensitive issue. What was the reason behind this secret meeting with that High Commissioner, especially when the elections are taking place in Gujarat? And another thing, the former Director General of the Pakistani Army, Arshad Rafiq, said that the elections of Ahmed Patel as the Chief Minister of Gujarat should be supported. This statement made by Narendra Modi on 9th of December 2017 is a classical example of fake news. It should be taught in mass communication classrooms. Only one fact in the statement is strictly true, that some people had gathered in Congress leader Manish Shankar Iyer's house in New Delhi. All the other facts are either incomplete or false. No secret meeting had been organized. It was such it was a dinner gathering for which invitations had been sent through regular email to several people, including journalists. Then Prime Minister correctly identified my name, some of the people who were at the dinner, but he did not read out the full list of the guests. He was well aware of what we learned later from reports published by some newspapers that day after his statement, India's former Chief of Army Staff, Deepak Kapoor, was also present at the dinner, along with the former Foreign Secretary and other senior Indian diplomats whose integrity is unquestionable. All of them said to the media that there had been no discussion on Gujarat at all. But after the Prime Minister had said what he had to say, the dinner was discussed all over Gujarat. Bearing one or two, none of the mainstream media institutions checked the veracity of the Prime Minister's statement. Most of them simply quoted with verbatim sample some of the headlines which were published by newspapers and news websites on 10th of December 2017. Gujarat polls. Why Pakistan Army ex-DG DG wants Ahmed Patel as CM, asks Narendra Modi. Narendra Modi alleges Pakistan in interfering in Gujarat Assembly polls, seeks explanation from Congress over its top party members, meeting leaders from Pakistan. ये मिड डे वालों ने एक पोस्ट किया था. Then Narendra Modi accuses Pakistan of interfering in Gujarat polls, claims it wants Ahmed Fateh Patel as chief minister. ये first post वालों का है. Pakistan trying to influence Gujarat polls, claims PM Narendra Modi at Palanpur rally. ये Indian Express वालों का है. Using the Prime Minister's statement as a firm base, the media then played an even bigger role and game with their headlines. Though the Prime Minister was wrong in what he had said, the fact that he was wrong, that he had twisted the facts, was not discussed or even mentioned. The Prime Minister is a past master of insinuation and innuendo. He is always innocent. He lights no fires himself. In this case, he gave the Q and the media like a mob plugged into a single brain, obliged by constructing the narrative he desired. All he did in Palanpur was to inform the people of a secret meeting, draw their attention to the meeting of the meeting and timing of the meeting, and then add that a retired officer of the Pakistan army wanted a congressman with a Muslim name to become the chief minister of Gujarat. Walaikum assalam, Mudassir Bhai. He did not explicitly say anything. He did not need to. The obliging media went to town with headlines saying that, according to the country's prime minister, Pakistan was interfering in the elections underway in Gujarat, and the Congress was colluding with it. One Once the idea of the interference had been planted, the BJP gave it utmost veracity by using it to attack the Congress every time it questioned the BJP's claim about the development in Gujarat. The regular consumer of the news would have felt that there surely must be something to what the Prime Minister had said, or his party would not be so vociferous. It is the factor there must be something which serves as fuel for fake news. When the Congress party demanded that the Prime Minister must apologize for his lie, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley responded belligerently, wanting to know that why the party was asking for an apology when it should be divulging the details of the secret meeting to the citizens of India. The situation changed completely after the elections were over and the BJP had scrapped through in Gujarat. When the proceedings of the Rajya Sabha, where the BJP doesn't have yet a majority, were interrupted by the Congress protesting against the Prime Minister's remark and insisting that he apologize, Arun Jaitley issued an apology disguised as an explanation. PM in his speech didn't question, nor meant to question, the commitment to the nation of either former PM Manmohan Singh or former VP Hamid Ansari. Any such perception is erroneous. We hold these leaders in high esteem as well as their commitment to India. There was no mention of the secret meeting. It was as if the Prime Minister had never whipped up a storm over a suspicious issue to fool citizens and a spurious issue to fool citizens, and in the process, all but accused a former Prime Minister of India, a former Vice President, and a former Chief of the Indian Army of treason. Walaikum assalam, Aftab. Read every word of the statement made by Arun Jaitley and what the Prime Minister said during the Gujarat elections, and you will find that fake news is not merely an electoral game but a phenomena for which statements are crafted with a great deal of intelligence and very strategically. Images are created, and so are the impressions, all for a specific ugly purpose. The manufacturing of fake news is a highly skilled game. It seems simple but is based on a deep knowledge of psychology of the common man. Most items of fake news are connected with issues about which people have partial information, more impressions than facts. For instance, there are many impressions about the partition of India in the minds of the people, especially now that very few of those who actually experienced it are alive. Fake news or posts connected with partition are connected based upon these unverifiable impressions of the event. So, a continuity of the false impressions exists, and because of that, no one doubts the veracity of the fake news. In the matter of the secret meeting at Manish Shankar Iyer's house, to a continuity existed. The sharp and the controversial statements that he had made about Narendra Modi and the BJP in the past and his consistent championing of the peace talks with Pakistan were enough to present him and his party as permanent villains. Thus, for me, more important than Prime Minister's statement and the clarification offered by the Jaitley a few weeks later is the psychological process of formation and the dissemination of the fake news. And each word of these statements was a classical example of the construction of an untruth. And if fake news comes from Prime Minister himself, it soon becomes almost a genuine article and travels quickly to and among the masks. All of politics then becomes fake. There is research which tries to show that fake news has no impact upon democracy, but it does, which is why the Prime Minister's secret meeting speech remained hostily discussed throughout the elections in Gujarat. After Arun Jaitley delivered that an apology disguised as an explanation in the Rajya Sabha afterwards, unwittingly implying that but never admitting that the Prime Minister had misled people. There was no way left for citizens to hold that the BJP and its leaders accountable for what was essentially a lie constructed to manipulate them. It is possible that many residents of the Gujarat still bear the burden of were impressions that were formed after hearing the falsity peddled to them. And if in nothing else, the Prime Minister succeeded in whipping out other genuine and concrete issues from the public consciousness for at least some time. Fake news engenders fake debates, and fake debates result in fake politics. It's a means to take the focus far away from the real problems that affect the people. Citizens keep wondering about looking to have their problems addressed, and political leaders hand them fake news and conspiracy theories and make a mockery of their lives. This is not a phenomena that is created only during elections. Rather, it's an entire process, a strategy to keep adding many obfuscating layers to just about everything. You emerge from one lie or half truth only to be entangled in another. To fight fake news, to wage a struggle against oneself, and to work very hard for information at all times. Very few manage to do this. Fake news is a tool that power uses to transport citizens to an alternative reality, where, forgetting their real and urgent problems, they find themselves confronted by the manufactured worries of a national scale. यहाँ पे मैं थोड़ा सा ऐड करूंगा. जैसे अभी आप पा रहे हो, सी भव्यर रवीश इज अ जीनियस. सी अभी जो इशू आ रहा है, अभी क्या इशू आ रहा है? हलाल का इशू आ रहा है, हिजाब का इशू आ रहा है, एंड द इशू इज हल्दीराम का अभी इशू आ रहा है. So this is fake news is a tool that the power uses to transport citizens to an alternative reality where, forgetting their real and urgent problems. What is the urgent problem? कि 14 डेज से पिछले 14 दिन और 10 दिनों से पेट्रोल की कीमत जो है बढ़ाई जा रही है. बस मैं थोड़ा थोड़ा कह रहा हूँ यहाँ पे. Forgetting their real and urgent problems, they find themselves confronted by manufactured worries of a national scale. Citizens who allow themselves to be manipulated in this manner do the greatest harm to themselves, complicit in their own material and intellectual and moral impoverishment. A people cut off from reality can also be extremely dangerous. They become a mob, which, with the aid of some major piece of false information, can be primed to commit violence. Today, most media platforms speak the same language. The society which falls within the ambit of their influence is left with very limited options to seek facts. On almost every news channel, in every program, false realities are being created on a basis of spurious issues and counterfeit agendas driven by the government and big business. This happens only on a daily basis. Power has shifted reality with the aid of the media. For instance, communalism has already been covered with the garb of nationalism. The media has now begun to present communal attitudes as valid, legitimizing them as nationalism. Since viewers and readers have limited options for gleaning information, they are forced into public consensus, manufactured by the government's PR machinery and the corporate media. There is now little to distinguish the two. It is not easy to escape from this web of images and misinformation, and very few actually do. Truth is the only thing that citizens have with which to challenge authority, the truth which springs from the conditions of their everyday life. So power erects the wall of an imaginary reality before the genuine realities of a people. Power in India today recognizes the fact that conditions of life cannot change rapidly, nor does it really have the wherewithal to change them. So, an instrument is needed, one which will constantly provide an alternative condition to the people. Fake news is the foundational basis of the process of continually creating alternative conditions. It carries on relentlessly. Fake news, fake debate is not only an alternative to news, it's also the means by which an alternative citizenry is being created. A gathering of people who are fed false information and polarizing impressions that amplify and legitimize their prejudices. These people are freed from the burden of thinking for themselves. They become like a mob and their political behavior like that of a robot. I call this robo-public. Okay. Those who comprise the Republic cannot be changed by an argument. All you can do in desperation or anger is to label them as blinkered foot soldiers, as bucks. The Republic is used to living in alternative conditions which have nothing to do with the reality. It has been programmed through a gradual robotification that involves appealing to its emotions rather than to reason. In fact, the spreading of the false information is done without pause and always with maximum noise so that there remains no possibility of nonce and reason. Fake news is the coded language which can be used to control and use robo public. The people who make up a genuine democracy are not an inert, lifeless unit. They constantly pulse and transform on the basis of the information. Consider a scenario in which all the various pathways of the information are controlled, and through them, only one kind of information is disseminated. False information which cannot be questioned. What kind of a citizenry will be created? The question is not what will happen to the citizenry at the end of the decade or two of such control. The question is what kind of people will that citizenry be during those 10 or 20 years? People who see no alternatives in the information they receive stop seeing alternatives in politics too. So, what kind of democracy will a robo public make up? I have seen people who behave like robots. They dismiss every manner of the argument. They use the very impressions on the basis which they are programmed to dismiss not only the contrary opinion but also discussions. They listen to nothing, they read nothing, they only see the one face they have been programmed to see. Those who behold us different sides are enemies and traitors. In the context of the India, they would be anti-Modi, anti-Hindu, and anti-national. They aren't a few. These robots they exist in sufficient manner numbers to take over every debate and create an atmosphere of the fear in the society through their aggressive reactions. We have no way of dealing with them. In combating the robo public personal relations within the families change. We stop speaking out, overcome by fatigue. We cannot sit with robots and have a conversation. We cannot look at the moon and the stars with them and wonder at the great mysteries of the universe. We cannot comfort them and they cannot comfort us. The most extreme robots are the bucks. No serious research has been conducted to see how in politics bucks are constructed out of the supporters. Most people take this process lightly and believe that the bucks are a temporary phenomenon, that this is a trend which, like every other trend, will fade away with time. Some bucks will indeed change with time, but they will be very few in number. The robo public, the potential bucks, aren't so that they can be written off or ignored. It's a particular ideology which programs them. And the scale of this operation is enormous. New issues are created, and ever more fake news are generated constantly on the basis of an exclusivist ideology. So that the number of the robots multiply and they always remain robot mode, forever demonstrating their faith in the ideology, which is now their sole identity. To keep up the impression of a mob that surrounds you everywhere and at all times is the chief task of the bucks.
Many people who don't wish to join the ranks of the Republic stop writing and speaking out of the fear of this mob, but now everyone likes being silenced. There are some who do manage to overcome this fear and speak out, even taking up their cudgels against fake news. So the Republic is being programmed yet again to brand these remarkable people who unmasked untruth as purveyors of the fake news themselves. This is the final trickery of the ideology that creates Republic. What can be a greater negation of the humanity in life and existence itself than the erasing of difference between truth and falsehood, between right and wrong? Fake news first falsified news and journalism, and it is now turning the citizens fake. The robo public is the fake public. A fake public means a fake republic, a fake political consciousness, and a fake democracy. The WhatsApp University is the biggest laboratory for fake news. In this laboratory, the process of vilifying anyone who stands in the opposition to the bucks of the present regime goes on constantly so that the robot public does not have a chance to shift its loyalties. All the possibilities of an alternative viewpoints are run down and made invalid. In this university, your photograph will be taken and made suspicious. It will be circled in red and made to go viral. You will be presented as a criminal to society. I was covering the Delhi Chief Minister Arvind Kejriwal's roadshow in Patiala during the Punjab elections of 2017. I and the cameraman were traveling in the same open jeep as Kejriwal. He was standing towards the front of it. A photographer positioned on a rooftop gestured to me, asking that I get the chief minister to look up so that he could take a photograph. I did, and the photographer got his picture. This photograph was made to go extensively viral with the caption that I was an agent working for Arvind Kejriwal and was helping him in his campaign. The photographer contacted me on WhatsApp many days later. He thanked me and said that though I had been badmouthed, he received many hits on the photograph he had taken. The misrepresentation had made him popular. Perhaps it furthered his career. A small example, but I hope it will help you better understand Modi's speech in Palampur during Gujarat's election. And when you think about this, remember when you why you elect prime ministers. Remember that you entrust them with the nation and everything that gives its dignity and stature. You trust them. Across the world, fake news has become preferred way to subvert democracy and for authoritarian regimes to do as they please. From the capital cities to far-flung districts, an elaborate infrastructure has been developed to manufacture and spread fake news. Governments and their favored corporations do this in tandem. Statements of heads of the state carrying misleading information are printed on the front page and flashed on primetime televisions when the misrepresentation is pointed out. None of these papers or channels summon the courage or even have the will to report that the prime minister or the president has lied. In March 2017, Reporters Without Borders released a report which rated countries across the world on the basis of the freedom of the press. India was ranked 136 among 180 countries. The performance of any government should be evaluated along with everything else on the grounds of whether the media is free during his tenure, and it isn't just overt censorship that's a threat to press freedom, but also the phenomenon of Godi media, the laptop media, which functions as the PR department of the government. A UN committee warned in a statement on 4th March 2017 that across the world, people occupying constitutional positions are either declaring independent media organizations liars or calling them the opposition. Fake news is being used to impose a new kind of censorship. Critical thinking is being suppressed. In March 2017, the Democrats who are in the opposition in America proposed a bill which said that matters have reached such a stage that fake news is being fed to American citizens by the president himself and his spokespersons. Government, organizations, and the universities all over the world are discussing fake news. It's a big problem in the Philippines. The country of the president of the country, Rodrigo Duterte, has been accused of encouraging fake news to keep his hold on power. A Filipino senator has filed a bill in the Senate which seeks to impose heavy penalties on the government officials and the media persons who spread fake news, including imprisonment ranging from 5 years to 20 years. In November 2016, the University of Philippines launched an online channel, TUVP, to combat fake news. The executive director of the university issued a statement saying that he hoped that through this channel, the trash that was striven in the online space could be countered so that the citizens of the country would have the opportunity to read genuine articles and access genuine news. The Sports Media and Cultural Committee of the British Parliament has also initiated an investigation of the effect of fake news on democracy. On the other hand, politicians and the agencies of the political parties who broadcast fake news have begun a new campaign. The president of the US, Donald Trump, has accused the news channel CNN of spreading fake news. He does that to whichever media criticizes his government. The president of Turkey, Recep Erdogan, sent many journalists to jail, claiming that by doing so he was combating the spread of the fake news. The prime minister of Cambodia branded the media as anarchist and said that the foreign media working in the country was a threat to peace and stability. The Supreme Court of Cambodia even dismantled the country's principal opposition party. The current age of media and power is rife with such examples. In India, some websites are battling fake news at their own levels. Between 2014 and 2017, many kinds and episodes of fake news were used to stoke tensions in the society. The migration of families out of Karyana village in the Saharanpur district of UP in 2015-2016 was given a communal color by the BJP and its affiliates, and debates continuously reached on TV that Karyana had been transformed into another Kashmir, with the Hindus that were being forced to flee Muslim terror like the Kashmiri Pandits. This was a dangerous game in which the prominent newspapers and news channels participated. The websites altnews.in, indiaspen.com, boomlive.com, www.hoax-slayer.net, and in Hindi, the websites Media Visual have started to take up arms against such fake news. Alt news का आपको पता होगी मोहम्मद जुबैर. Pratik Sinha of Alt News has managed to take the wheels of fake news generated by numerous ministers, governments, and websites. But this is happening on a very small scale. These valiant efforts make a very small dent on the fake news spread by the vast majority of the mainstream media. It is imperative that we define fake news very clearly. The common man hasn't yet understood the many ways in which it is disseminated. Mistakes are committed in journalism, and every mistake isn't fake news. But the specially crafted fake news that emerges regularly these days originates elsewhere and is fed to journalists and media houses who reach it to everyone. People occupying constitutional positions that legitimize it with their statements. There is also another way in which the fake news is being generated. All governments are stopping information from reaching the media. No one possesses critical information. In its place, there are false information, spurious issues, and loaded statements and supplied by the government, which keeps the wheels of misinformation and propaganda turning. Issues are raised. Issues are raised which have no connection with the reality or do not have as much of a connection or impact as they are made out to have. Big political parties use fake news to destroy smaller ones. The later, which their modest resources are helpless, caught in the web of the lies, the IT cells of the powerful parties and their supporters are all engaged in disseminating false information. You could call it an equivalent of the carpet bombing. Now, some political parties are constituting teams that which catch fake news spread by other parties. For instance, during these elections in the France, National Front put together a fake news alert team. Parties in India will soon have to put together in their own teams. The volume and the speed of the fake news increases during election time. In 2016, when a referendum was conducted in Italy on measures that would have changed its constitution and given the prime minister greater powers, half the stories shared on Facebook were spurious and clearly designed to influence the plebiscite. Alarmed by the torrent of the false stories coming from Russia, notorious for its fake news factories believed to be funded by the government, and the European Union recently constituted a task force, the East Stratcom team, to counter them. This team was provided with a lot of money and resources during the elections in the Netherlands and the France so that they could thwart Russian propaganda. Russia has been accused of spending a lot of money on fake news in order to manipulate elections in several countries, including America. In India, too, the quantity of the fake news increases during the elections. The Election Commission has no means to stem this flood. It doesn't even have a firm definition of this phenomena. But the Commission does acknowledge as paid news, though there isn't yet a clear law to deal with it either. The Commission creates media certification and the monitoring committees at the state and the district level during every election to identify and catch paid news and issue notices to the candidates asking clarification. In one of its reports released in 2013, the Commission said that 1,400 instances of paid news were observed in the Legislative Assembly elections held in 17 states between 2010 and 2013. General elections of the 2014 threw up 787 cases of paid news. Over 3,100 paid news related to notices were issued to candidates in the 2014 elections. The Election Commission could not stop paid news, but it managed to create an agency which goes to work after each election is notified. However, nowadays, all the games have usually begun even before the election dates are announced. There isn't much for the Commission to do. The Election Commission defines paid news as any news or analysis appearing in any media, print or electronic, for a price in cash or kind as consideration, and says that it plays a very vitiating role in the context of free and fair elections. Advertisements are published in the garb of news items, totally misleading the electors. But the beast has evolved and grown way beyond this. It isn't just about advertisements masquerading as news any longer. It's now the era of fake news, and no big fig leaf is indeed in needed lies are the new truth. Fake news happens on such a large scale that the government, if it really values democratic principles, must constitute a separate commission for it during elections, which, like the Election Commission and regulatory authority, should have constitutional rights and also be independent. But given the track record, not just of the present government, but of every government in the short story of our republic, we can be sure this would happen in a hurry if it this won't happen in a hurry if it happens at all. I think that is more than enough. रविश कुमार का ये वाला ओके हमारे पास सिर्फ 2 लिसनर्स हैं यहाँ पे मोर देन इनफ सो चलिए ठीक है आई गेस वी शुड एंड दिस राइट हियर और मैं नई स्ट्रीम स्टार्ट करूंगा उसका नाम रखूंगा एल्केमिस्ट क्योंकि अगर ये मिक्स हो गया ना तो फिर अच्छा नहीं रहेगा ये व्हाट डू यू से क्योंकि इस वाली स्ट्रीम को मैं ऐड प्लेलिस्ट बना दूंगा by the name of Ravish Kumar. I don't want it to get add to the playlist of Ravish Kumar. अगर ये रविश कुमार में चला गया तो इसमें एल्केमिस्ट होगी. What do you say? बताइए बताइए जल्दी बताइए. जल्दी बताइए जल्दी बताइए. चलिए ठीक है. I am ending it. I am starting another stream.